when it was a time where we sort of didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if Filipino food was going to take off, or if it was going to just be this one thing, or people didn't get it. Like, we weren't sure what the market was going to do, and we were super lucky to be well supported in the event space.
Welcome to Dirty Linen Food Podcast. My name is Dani Valent, and I'm thrilled to be with you, as always. If you are listening to the podcast consecutively, and you may well not be, I've been eating and enjoying food culture a lot since we last spoke in my Friday on My Mind episode. Sometimes I'm amazed at how much I manage to fit in, but I think it's all born from enthusiasm and loving to connect with people around food. I mentioned last time that I was off to a party to celebrate Hamad Aliari's opening of his Sunshine Kebabi restaurant. That was a beautiful occasion. I even got onto the impromptu dance floor and learnt a few Persian moves. It was great to eat kebabs and celebrate the opening of that restaurant, as well as the cookbook that Hamed and I co-wrote 2 years late, but it was great to celebrate that, and also his permanent residency. Certainly, I'm a huge advocate and supporter of the brilliant contribution that people who arrive here as refugees can make, and immigrants generally. There is so much to celebrate. I've also just come back from Annie Smithers' restaurant in Trentham, which is called Du Fermier, and is a really gorgeous example of French provincial cooking, very produce focused, very delicious. No menu, you just get what Annie's cooking, and goodness me, she has such a beautiful touch. How lucky am I? Made my way back to Melbourne via a truck stop that serves excellent Turkish breakfasts. And now I am going to be talking Filipino food with Maria Viojan from Adelaide's The Filipino Project. Maria and I first connected at the Australian Open. If you listen to my little Eat My Way Around the Tennis episode, you will have already been introduced to the wonderful Maria. She is so great that I knew I had to get her back for a full episode. Maria, welcome to Dirty Linen.
Thanks, Dani, for having me. Happy to be here.
So happy to have you on the show. So we met at the AO. I was so excited for you to see you there. Tell us about that experience.
Oh my gosh, where do I start? So I guess AO was just a surreal experience for us. It was one of those things, it's a long time coming. It's like you put your hat in the ring, and then you wait a little bit, and you don't know if you're going to get in, and then emails and phone calls and all this, back and forth. And then, like I said in our original chat, it's been 2.5 years and we got there. But it's the first time our brand has travelled interstate. So, it's one of those things where you don't know what it's gonna be like. You don't know if people are gonna receive the food, like how people are going to react to the food and that kind of thing. Obviously, people are there for the tennis, but we all know that food is a huge thing. So, no, we had a really, really good time. In terms of, I guess, like the experience itself, I mean, AO provided us so much support. As you can imagine, it's one of those things where there's a million moving parts, to execute something of this kind of scale. There was a lot of menu altering, finding the right balance with what people want to eat, with what you want to serve, that kind of thing. We hit a few roadblocks with, obviously back home we do a lot of charcoal cooking over fire, that kind of thing. So, it's just finding the right balance, working with the right suppliers and producers. And, obviously there's the other challenge of working interstate as well. So it's AO, giving us support with finding the appropriate stakeholders and to ensure that we can deliver as well. So, yeah, it was a really interesting, fun experience for us.
Wow. Well, I loved having some Filipino flavours at the Australian Open. Just, I think, from my perspective here in Melbourne, I've learned so much about Filipino food over the past 5 years. I think it's really having such a surge, and it's exciting to yeah, just start to understand it a bit more. I've never been to the Philippines. Hopefully that's in my future. But in the
You have to
meantime,
go.
have to go. I know.
Put it on your list.
Definitely. Well, tell us, I mean, let's go back and let's understand a bit more about the Filipino Project, because I've sort of started in the middle, which is where I started, finding you this massive event. But tell us about the business and where you began, how it's all tracked.
Look, so we started, I guess our story's a little bit reversed. So, in saying that, like, we started back in uh, 2015. We started as a bricks and mortar, and we had a restaurant. It wasn't called the Filipino Project, but we did serve Filipino food. John and I both have a hospitality. John's my husband, by the way. He's the man behind all of the delicious food and cooking and all the offerings. But he basically wanted to get out of his corporate job. I was still in my corporate job at the time as well. And so we've had a background in hospitality, and we sort of saw a gap in the market in Adelaide. There was no one really doing Filipino food at a wider kind of scale. We didn't have a huge budget, but we saw a great spot in the Adelaide CBD, and we thought, oh my God, this is going to be fun. This is great. Not knowing how much hard work it would be to, we were underneath a hotel. So we thought, oh my God, we have to open breakfast, lunch, dinner. So we worked 7 days a week. I was still working in a full-time corporate job during the day, and at night, most nights I'd go and do anything from waitressing, washing dishes, stock ordering, you name it, we did it. And we decided, I guess, Filipino food needs to have its time. So fast forward, a year into the business, we're like, this is just like, you have your Filipinos who are coming in, enjoying the food. But it was one of those things where Filipino food is, I guess, meant to be shared. It's one of those things where, you go out and you have it with, big groups and all of that. And we, we were lucky enough in 2017, sorry, there was Lucky Dumpling Market was on, and we sort of were at the point in our business where, okay, we'd been doing this for about a year and a half, 2 years. It was going okay, but it wasn't sort of taking off like we'd seen Filipino food take off, I guess, in the States and other parts of the world. So we thought, you know what, can't hurt, let's try it. So put our hat in the ring, and we branded it as the Filipino Project, because what we found was with the restaurant, people weren't sure what cuisine we served. And so I think it was the name of the like how what we named our restaurant. So we sort of thought, you know what, let's just put it out there. Filipino Project, that's what we're naming it. We don't really know where this is going to take us. We're just going to try it, put it out there, and let's do something that's so in your face. So John was really into barbecuing, really into, cooking, the whole theatrics of it. And it was one of those things where we didn't have to explain ourselves, oh, what are you cooking? What is Filipino food? Like, people could see that you're cooking cooking chicken, over charcoal. You're getting it with rice and salad, and it's something that sort of anybody, Filipino background, no Filipino background, could sort of like relate to. So then I guess, it's from there, people loved it. People loved the theatrics of the cooking over the fire. They could smell like this barbecue from literally across the across the lake where we were. And people would come, and I just remember for 2.5 weeks straight, it was all a blur, because we were serving masses of people, just like people were just coming in droves, because it was one of those things where people could smell it. They could, they were following, I guess, it's the time where like social media was, I guess, out there doing its thing. We did an ube soft serve as well. So we did something to complement the barbecue. And it was, this thing that was going almost viral in a sense that where people were flocking to because they had tried it. And so we came to a point, I guess, in our business where we thought our lease renewal was up and our business partners, they were about to start their own family. And, it was one of those things where we just thought, okay, let's let go of the restaurant. Let's try events. And so we gave it up and went down the events path, and we just have not looked back. So we've been super, super lucky. The guys at Gluttony Fringe, they gave us a chance. And, when it was a time where we sort of didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if Filipino food was going to take off or if it was going to just be this one thing or people didn't get it. Like we weren't sure what the market was going to do, and we were super lucky to be well supported in the event space. And since then, I guess, we've done so many events. This is going to be our 8th Fringe. So I just counted back a minute ago how many we've done. And we've just grown every year, which is such a lucky thing to be able to do and I guess, be well supported.
That's so amazing. What a story, Maria. So for people who don't know what Fringe is, just quickly explain that.
Oh, yes. So Fringe is a arts festival. So it happens in Adelaide. So they call Adelaide the festival state, right? Everyone thinks, oh, my God, what is there to do in Adelaide? But if you don't know, we're Australia's best kept secret, everybody. We have the best food and wine, and we have, we're so lucky to have all these events that come around all year round. So Adelaide Fringe happens February, March every year. So we have acts from all over the world come across, and whether they're doing comedy performances, circus acts, and there's all different types of performances. But there's Gluttony, which is like a space in Rymel Park that does, it's a lot of food, a lot of wine, a lot of good times, and we're lucky enough to represent one of the Filipino cuisines there. So it's actually coming up. So that's our next big event that we're going to be doing, which is they've got a sneak peek preview this weekend coming. So if you're in Adelaide or looking to plan, that's my plug for it. But it's one of our favourite events for sure.
I love it. Well, it is a well-known fact that art makes you very hungry. So I'm sure the food is a massive element of all those festivals over in SA. Maria, I think it is so interesting, your whole origin story. I think it feels like there's a lesson in there for other people who want to put maybe underrepresented cuisines or dishes or flavors or whatever out there, in that, you try to do something softly, gently, people are almost eating Filipino food without knowing it. But then when you try to just put it in people's faces and be like, this is what we are, loud and proud, this is what we're doing, smell it from hundreds of meters away, you'll be lured there. It's like, that's when it really hit. What are the lessons there?
Yeah, so I guess one of the things that we learned very quickly was, you have your protein, for example. Like we were doing doing barbecue chicken, for example, and at first we were calling it chicken in a sal, which is done with your fragrant lemongrass, all these spices that and you're cooking over charcoal. And a lot of the people would come and they would come to our menu and they wouldn't be able to read it. They'd be like they just didn't get it, right? And it was more of the education thing, like, I'll have the barbecue chicken. And what we found was, people don't know what they don't know, and it's almost like, oh, is it chili? Is it like, what is it? And there's all these misconceptions of, you're trying to put something out there. People don't know what it is. And because we've grown up with it, we're sort of like, well, I can't believe these people don't know how to, and you just come back down to reality and you sort of think to yourself, okay, pretend I don't know Filipino food at all, and how can I sort of um, relate to like something that I'm familiar with to Filipino food. So that's where I guess a lot of the learnings come from, just thinking like a little bit differently about how we present the food, or how we, without sort of, with kind of trying to stay true as possible to what real Filipino food is. One of the things that is our bestseller, or our signature dish, is a lechon pork belly. So lechon is, spit roast suckling pig. And a lot of people still come up to us to this day and go, "Can I have the lemon pork belly?" And it's one of those things where we just like we're trying to stay true to what we know as Filipino food, what we grew up eating, without having to overcomplicate things. And it's like a porchetta on a spit, or like it's something where you can always find something to help people relate to it. So in a long roundabout way, that's what we sort of try and do. And we try as well to stay true to, like I said, what we know and what we grew up with, without trying to having to compete with your mum's cooking or your auntie's cooking and things like that. So that's one of the that's one of the hardest things that we find anyway.
Give us a little insight into the food that you did grow up with, Maria. Like, what were some of the occasions, the key dishes, the flavors? Like, what are some of the I guess the culture around Filipino food that you just absorbed without even knowing that you were learning something?
So I guess one of the things that we always, so in my family anyway, we had Sunday lunches. So a lot of pancit, which is like noodles. So every birthday we had to have pancit, because noodles is long life, that kind of thing. Where we always had lumpia, which is Filipino spring rolls. So I guess what makes it a lumpia is it's like really small spring rolls that you, after your mum cooks 500 of them, you don't really know that you've eaten 500, because they're so little that you don't even realize. It's stuff like lechon, which is that spit roast suckling pig, and we always had it for occasions, and always food that you are sharing with your family and friends. It's one of those things where you have a birthday or a celebration or a Sunday lunch, and my mum's literally cooking like 10 or 12 dishes, and there's like 10 people. So it's like you have 1:1 or more. And it's all about like a lot of the Filipino food is you have your sweet barbecue marinades, and then you have the counter of your sausawan, which is like a dipping sauce. So in a form of like a vinaigrette, or there's a really like good balance, and we use a lot of vinegar in our cooking, a lot of soy, that kind of thing. So it's one of those things where, and also desserts, we cannot leave out dessert. We have leche flan, which is our creme caramel equivalent. I feel like the Filipino creme caramel or leche flan is so delicious. It is a little bit thicker than a normal flan, because we just go, basically ratio is 1 evaporated milk is to 1 condensed milk. and then egg yolk. So very heavy, but it's one of those things where everyone's got their own version, and to make it your own, or to celebrate that in our culture is so important for us. So yeah, that's a basic 101 of Filipino food, I guess.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I'm sure you don't have time to explain that to every person who comes up to us for a lemon pork belly, so you can just direct them to this podcast now. From a business point of view, Maria, you mentioned that you kept working in your other job while you had the restaurant. Like, did there come a time when you both felt confident to let go of other income and just be full, wholesale, throw yourselves into the Filipino project?
Look, I'll be honest, I'm still employed in my other job. I went on maternity leave. So um, my husband was all in from the very beginning, and he left his corporate job and did want to do this full time. So it was almost like there's no other option. Like, we're doing this. So and even now, like, it's even more I guess we're even more lucky because we've done some really good events and had some really good opportunities under our belt where we feel like it's, I guess, Filipino food is also on the rise, and there's a demand for it. So in 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 business, I guess, you never really know when you're going to take the leap. You never really know if it's going to be the right decision, or what about if we don't get into that event, or what if it's not a good event. Like, there's just always you err on the side of caution. But I think it's one of those things where my husband especially, he's heads down, put your head down, keep going. And if you believe in it, if you're good at it, if, you're selling something that's true to what you do, and, you don't know if you're going to make money that night. You don't know if, it's going to be a good event, but you can only try. So from that point of view, it's like we just keep trying, keep going. And, every event is going to be different. We know that. So I guess it's just being prepared and, having the right understanding of how many serves of food to minimize, like excess stock and things like that. But I think the turning point for us probably would have been Tasting Australia, I think 2022, where we had been trying to apply for Tasting Australia, I think, for 4 years, and we kept getting rejected. And it's like, but why don't people want Filipino food at this event? And the fifth year, I said to John, this is the last time I'm applying. And if we don't get in, then Filipino food is not meant to be it. And we, funnily enough, got in that year, and we were so busy, so inundated, the traction that we got from that was just incredible. And it just sort of solidified the fact that Filipino food is meant to be here. It's, we're lucky enough to be representing it in a lot of ways in South Australia. And it just goes to show that, all the hard work that we put into, perfecting the recipes, doing what we need to do, keeping our head down, that, we were able to gain traction and things like that from that. So in a nutshell, again, but yeah, no, really lucky.
It's a lot, isn't it? I mean, family business is always tough. You've got to have so much belief. I fully understand and respect that safety net of having another income or profession. That's so wise. But at the same time, yeah, you've got this dream that you need to put a lot of energy in, and I guess when those applications come off, then there must be a bit of a juggle. Yeah. I mean, what advice would you have for other people who are looking at going into a business with family members? How to balance that all?
Oh, look, I feel like this is a very difficult question. So, because, okay, so a lot of people think, you work with your husband. How do you find that? Like, and I feel like for me, and I'm definitely no expert, but what I can say is, know where your strengths are. So, like, I know with small business, there's this thing where you wear a lot of hats. So, you're doing the marketing, you're doing the back end, you're doing the bookkeeping, you're doing everything in the back end that people don't really see. And then you're doing the front end stuff. So you're talking to customers, you're dealing with, stakeholders of events and your suppliers and all of that kind of thing. So there's a whole, I guess, you're doing HR, you're doing, all of these things. And I guess my piece of advice is know where your strength is and, support the other person or support whoever you're doing business with and trust that they're doing the job that they need to do. It's one of those things where, you're already going to be stressed because you're starting something new or you're going into an event. You don't know how busy it's going to be or how good it's going to be. And if you just take a step back and say, okay, well, my strength is, I deal with the staff and deal with all the back end stuff, which is mainly what I do. And then John does all the day-to-day running kind of stuff. Then, he trusts that I'm going to, do my thing, and I trust that he's going to do his thing. It's not always going to be perfect. We've definitely crossed over many, many times. But yeah, my advice, I guess, would just be know your strengths and just keep going. So
what about that? You've started with a restaurant, you let that go because events started doing so well. Could you ever imagine going back to bricks and mortar?
Look, bricks and mortar is so scary at the moment, I feel. It's one of those things where, and it's with the rising costs of so many things and, the hospitality industry, I feel, is suffering a lot across the board. And, we see so many of our friends in positions where, they're not supported or they're, they think, oh, why did I sign this 10-year lease? Or, just struggle to find staff, all of the above. I'm never going to say never, but look, it is one day hopefully on the cards. But if we do it, we're going to do it. I guess, we want to put our all into it. And at the moment, because events are so good for us and it's a great work-life balance, we probably not say in the very near future, but in the future, we'd love to open something, why not?
Yeah, well, I think it's so interesting. You've done it, as you said, around the other way to a lot of businesses. I guess any time you did sign a lease, you would have your eyes wide open, having been through it once before.
Yeah.
You must have learnt a lot. Well, it's so exciting. So, Maria, I want to come to all the events and eat all the things. I loved the little taste of what I had of yours at the Australian Open. What would you feed me when I come and see you next time?
Look, if you come next time, you have to have the lechon pork belly. It is our favourite dish. We do a really, really good ube soft serve as well. And all of the barbecue. I just feel like, we make our own longanisa sausage. We do barbecue chicken really, really well. All of the barbecue. So that's John's, I guess, like that's his thing. He loves cooking over fire. We love eating that even not when we're at events. So, it is one of those things where, we love sharing that side of our culinary journey. We would just feed you all of the things.
That's what I'll say, Maria. Please give me all of the things.
All of the things.
Yeah. That sounds wonderful. And I will just also say I had an ube gelato recently from Caraton, where John Rivera, certainly one of the people who's putting Filipino food on the map with his Caraton sorbetas and his restaurant Ascal, a real shining light for Filipino cuisine in this country. And his ube ice cream with coconut curd, I think it is, and some little crispy bit. I don't know what I can't remember what it was, but it was so good. Definitely worth seeking out. But yeah, I'd love to compare it to an ube soft serve. That sounds excellent.
Yeah, we actually went to Ascal when we were in Melbourne, so we love what they're doing there as well, and we love going to other business like Filipino businesses. It's just so nice to see.
Yeah, so exciting. Well, thank you, Maria, for enticing us to all visit Adelaide. If we're not there already or already planning a trip, definitely something that we all need to do. And yeah, cannot wait to encounter you and your delicious food again. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Dani. Appreciate it.
Yeah, great to have a chat. This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.